Live from Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. And now, here are your hosts, the Brewmeisters, Kyle and the Reverend Ryan Bono.
Hey, have we started yet? I want to turn the volume up.
Oh, did you guys mute me?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
It was a great intro.
Did you give us the intro and we missed it?
No, it was perfect.
All right. Well, that's good.
Hey, everybody. Hello, beer lovers, and welcome to another exciting, if not a little belatedly starting episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bono.
And I'm Kyle Thor LaPointe.
And we are here, as we are every Monday, to help you bridge the gap between beer snob and frat boy. Kyle, what are we up to tonight?
Well, we're going to move further along with our alt beer discussion, the Brew and Bull's alt beer that we're making this year. I always want to say Brew and Bull Stout. You know, it's like that first beer.
The Brew and Bull Stout. It really kind of rolled off the tongue really nicely. Right. So yeah,
but Brew and Bull alt.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Brew and Bull alt. We're gonna recap last week's episode a little bit. We got kind of carried away eating German food and drinking beer.
Dude, that onion soup, I had that again today. It was my third time to have it because we made so much of it. It's fantastic.
That stuff is really good. Yeah, so we'll recap, talk a little bit about what we learned, and we'll ask you to share any stories that you might have, any Oktoberfest you've been to or Oktoberfest beers you've had. So let's go ahead and dig right in.
Sure.
What did we learn last week?
We learned that, you're not always dead on with your beer selections for food. When you have these foods and you think, oh, I'm gonna drink this, I'm gonna try this, and it's good to mix it up because sometimes a more hoppy or darker beer doesn't really hit the palate with the food the way that you think it would, and they start to taste different. They're not very good. Sometimes you find the one that's just right on, that's you don't expect, and that's just great.
It definitely is an exact science. It's something that you really should experiment with and just mess around. Just see what kind of flavors you get.
And for those of you who will pay careful attention to Bono's eyes today, he will be checking his smartphone quite often.
Until the Rangers game is over.
Because Texas is playing some Ranger football. Oh, is it football?
It's cricket.
Oh, they're playing cricket. I knew they were playing something. Anyway,
all right, well, let's talk a little bit about this beer that we're having tonight before we move on.
We're having the Left Hand Stranger.
Okay, good.
It's good beer.
So let's talk. What is the Left Hand Stranger? What kind of beer is it?
They classify it as an American Pale Ale.
Okay. And I think both of us agree that this is a really good American Pale Ale.
It's a good American Pale Ale.
It's a little bit on the lower end of the style guidelines, but it's within bounds, I think, as far as bitterness.
I would say low to mid-end. It's not all the way at the bottom.
No.
You're not worried. It's got enough malt character to qualify as a pale ale, and you're all right with that.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of floral hops. It's got that spiciness that Bono had noted, and it's definitely there. I thought it was from the hops, and apparently there's rye in there. So that's
I think we both thought it was from the hops, but we discovered from the Left Hand website that it's got rye.
Yep, that's what they tell us at least. But their website's kind of it's a little more anecdotal and less informational, so who knows what they really have in there. But it's a good beer. I highly recommend it. If I'm just shooting from the hip right off the bat, this is going to be a high 30s, low 40s beer.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be my guess. And this is probably a good lawnmower beer.
I would say so. A little too hoppy for lawnmower beer, but
yeah, I guess it just depends on your style. I like a little bit hoppier lawnmower beer than you.
90 degrees right now when it's not 110 degrees. Yes, definitely this is a lawnmower beer.
Absolutely.
And, like we did in our lawnmower episode, is it during lawnmower, pre-lawnmower,
right,
or post-lawnmower? Because that's three different beers.
Yeah, three different beers, exactly. So, last week, what was your favorite pairing? We had a lot of different beer here. We had a lot of different food. What was your... we all did our favorites at the time. Let's kind of try to look back now.
I'm thinking, if I remember correct, that onion soup with the Optimator, I just really dug that.
That was really nice. My favorite pairing also came with the onion soup, and I think at the time I said the onion soup and the Optimator, but I'm going to go with the first pairing we did that night: the onion soup and the raw gravel road.
Yeah,
that was very good stuff. Good. But the thing we really wanted you to take away from what we did last week is that you don't have to know anything about beer to do beer pairings. Just grab a variety of beers from the grocery store, get a variety of food, and just pour little tasters and try it and see what happens.
And preferably grab like 6 bottles from a World Market or a Central Market, somewhere where it'll let you buy single bottles. Grab a 6-pack, everything with a different name.
Yeah, dude.
Because if you don't know beers, right, grab a pale ale, grab a Coles, grab whatever you can find, but make sure you don't grab like 5 different pale ales because you'll get pretty much the same thing from what you're drinking and eating. But the idea is you want to have a food and a beer that you drink one on their own as the beer, and you eat one on its own as the food, and they're good. But if you put them together, they're great. That's for sure. And
there's some guidelines out there to help you choose what beer is going to go best with what food.
Sure.
And a lot of those guidelines are even very general. And just as a for instance, you can say on a general basis that you're going to want hoppy beers if you're having a thanks, cheese guy.
If you're having hot food.
Yeah, if you're having a hot, spicy food, you're going to want hoppy beers. That's not always necessarily that might not be your style. So just go ahead and get a bunch of beers and try it, see what happens.
And the classic American example of pairing food with beer is like hot wings and Coors Light.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
which is actually a good pairing.
Yeah, the 3 C's, like we've discussed before with pairing beers. You've got cold, carbonation, and hops. So
hops.
It's
hops. Yeah, to go with the Yiddish.
Very
hops.
gutturable. Gutturable. I meant guttural, but
yeah,
that's all right,
guttural.
Gutturable is kind of how I throw my bowling ball these days.
All right. I think we pretty much covered the tasting.
The horse is dead.
The horse is dead.
Put down the bloody stick.
We have beaten it even worse than Seth MacFarlane.
Wow.
Oh, God, that is awful.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
I was wondering what you had beaten it worse than, so I'm glad you informed me it was Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, like I can beat a dead horse. Wow, we're getting the bad sound bites tonight. Let's go on. Let's talk about Brew Bowl.
Brew Bowl, man.
Brew Bowl,
which we're hoping is probably a week before the Oklahoma Sooners play this year.
A week to 9 days is what we're hoping for. We just can't wait to get trounced by the SEC champion. It's what I'm looking really. I'm really looking forward
to. God, this year though, barring stupid injuries and whatnot, I feel like the only thing that holds us back from a national title team is Landry Jones throwing too many stupid picks.
Yeah, okay.
But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, well, we can do that during our segment on the Half-Ass Sportscast.
Sure.
But until then,
we've got to come up with a beer.
Yeah, we got to come up with a beer. And we're just like last fall, we're going to design the beer recipe with you, the viewing audience. And so, where do you start with the brew recipe? What's the very first thing you're going to look at?
The first thing you're going to look at is the style guideline itself.
Exactly.
And so you're going to try to read the style guideline because we're shooting for this style guideline.
Yeah, if we were just looking to make beer, then we wouldn't sweat it. But we are aiming to make a specific style of beer,
which is
alt beer.
Is more specifically a Dusseldorf
alt,
which is style 7C in the BJCP.
Yes.
And in this particular case, we're choosing the alt beer that is made with excuse me, got a little hiccup there. We're doing the alt beer that is made with an ale yeast instead of a lager yeast, but it ferments similar to a lager, so it just has a little more residual fruitiness. It's slightly a different kind of beer.
Heavier body, and it's going to be a little bit more flavorful.
A little hoppier, too.
Yeah, a little bit hoppier. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the style guidelines. And the reason we're going to do that is because, that tells you what it's supposed to taste like.
Mm-hmm.
But even more importantly than that, in the style guidelines, you pan down to the bottom. And we really need to get like a style guidelines can for when we do stuff like this.
That's not a bad idea.
But you pan down, and one of the actual headings in the style guidelines is ingredients. So, I think that's a good place to start.
It is a great place to start because if nothing else, you can look at a style guideline and look at the ingredients. And as a brewer who has tasted those ingredients and brewed with those ingredients, you get an idea of what it's supposed to taste like. And I'd be hard-pressed to say that brewers who've been brewing for more than 3 or 4 years, if you just gave them a bunch of ingredients, that they would not get you pretty close to what the style is. They would probably say, that sounds like an alt beer.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And that's a big part of the Iron Mash that we're going to be doing here in a few weeks. We'll talk about that next week or two, I think.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
I fired up the burner on the new brew rig, by the way.
Looking good?
It didn't light all the way, but I was trying to light it with a torch sparker.
Okay. So next time we'll just bring a blowtorch and that'll...
Well, I need to bring an actual flame because I don't think I could spread the flame enough Because once you light it and then you got blue flame this high, you don't really want to get your hand up near there and be trying to spark that silly little sparker.
We can have the Faz do it.
Yeah, hey, come on over here, Faz. We need to light some fires that may or may not burn your hands.
So anyway, yeah, we're working on our brew rig, and it's getting closer and closer to being a real live working thing. So we'll talk more about that in the future, I think.
Sure. Yeah, we got
absolutely.
a couple shows lined up here later on. We'll discuss it. Like it to be functional before we put it all up there because we've done a lot of work on it. Probably overkill, but it's really neat.
Yeah. Anybody's caught the preseason, pre-mid-season teasers we had going on the channel?
So yeah, we did.
That's right. We did talk about that.
We talked about we put a little clip up there with some of the actual work done on building the frame, and now we've mounted the burners, and we've got everything going. It's pretty cool looking. It's pretty neat.
Pretty legit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good stuff. So let's go back to the style guidelines.
Okay.
And let's look at the ingredients. I'm going to try not to make this too boring, but I'm reading directly out of the book.
Okay.
And it says that grist will vary, but usually consists of German base malts. Well, what's a German base malt? Well, what do they mean when they say that?
In most cases, they mean Pils, but sometimes they could mean Munich, and sometimes they could go as far as, say, Vienna.
Absolutely.
But
and Vienna is more of an altered Pils, isn't it? It's a darker...
It's the darkest of the three.
Yeah. But this says usually Pils, sometimes Munich. So this is the bulk of the grains that we're putting in are going to be Pilsner malts.
Yeah, Pils is going to be the base, and that gives you Pils is a different style of malt that actually imparts a little more flavor because of how they malt it. They malt it differently than we malt our 2-row over here.
They dry it. We dry our base malt a little bit faster and a little bit hotter than they do theirs. So what you end up with their base malt is a lighter beer. You end up with paler, like just lighter colors and lighter body as well.
But they do it for a slightly longer time, and what you end up with is something that also has a more grainy flavor to it. And sometimes you get the slight bit of sulfur notes from that Pils malt.
Absolutely. So then it goes on to say that you have small amounts of crystal, chocolate, or black malts to adjust color. Occasionally we'll include some wheat. Why would we include wheat? It says occasionally. I think we're going to. Why are we going to do that? What is that going to give us?
Well, it does what's important in this style guideline, which is a thick, creamy, long-lasting off-white head. What it does when you add wheat to a beer is you add these proteins that can't be digested by the yeasts involved in the process, and you get this big foamy head that's on top of the beer that looks great, and it adds presentation to the beer, and it also increases the amount that you get from the smell. So you can smell the beer better, you can smell what's in the beer better. It is a double-edged sword in the beer brewing world. If you brew a good beer with a big foamy head on it that's releasing all that good aroma, then it takes you over the top to a winning beer.
Really does.
If you brew a bad beer and you put that on there, it just sinks you a little bit. But, not that much, because if it's a bad beer, it's a bad beer. But
bad beer is a bad beer.
Rather know right off the bat when you're smelling it that it's a bad beer than when you taste it.
So it goes on to say that spalt hops are traditional, and this is a German variety of noble hop. Spalt hops are traditional, but other noble hops can be used. Moderately carbonate water. What do they mean when they say moderately carbonate water?
The carbonates are minerals. Like usually if you're adding that to a beer or to a water, it's going to be in the form of salts. Mm-hmm. So, but it's mineral content to the water.
And water that is high in carbonate is, you've probably heard it referred to as hard water. And so that is hard, right?
Soft.
Oh, is that soft?
Yeah.
Soft water is high?
Soft water.
Sorry, I get all backwards. You guys, you know that by now. You've watched me a few times. So it's water that is high in carbonate is referred to as soft water. So you need your water to be a little bit soft. Now,
you guys look us up out there because now I'm second guessing myself. Maybe the chat room can double check us. Hard water. I think the soft water is high in mineral content. Oh, he's going to look it up right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and look it up. And you go ahead and talk a little bit more about our water and what that's going to do.
The water we have around here, because the city of Richland Hills partially brings their water in from well water, which is where we live. So we got 50% well water almost at any given time, sometimes higher than that. Our mineral content in the water is higher. And because that mineral content is higher, it does some certain things with the pH balance of what you're brewing. And what we've found, I mean, you look at these, you can research like Bono's doing in this booklet, and you can find out what that does. Having certain mineral content in your beer is good for certain beer styles, but it's bad for others. And so some of the beers where it says that's really good have been the best beers we've ever made. And it makes a point because we've never really given a whole lot of thought to our water profile. We try to get clean water in there, but as far as the carbonate content and the salt content and the mineral content of we try not to adjust that. We use our base water.
I don't think carbonate has a whole lot of effect on. I think it's mainly so some of that like magnesium and sodium and some of these other metals that affect your water.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and put this book up on the camera.
What was our answer, by the way?
It's called Brewchem 101, and it's very useful. Very, very good book to have around.
What was our answer, by the way?
Our answer
to the
guys are the authority.
Water.
Oh, I couldn't find it. I don't think it has much of much of an effect.
Yeah, Bono can't read.
Oh yeah, either that or the book just didn't cover it.
So it's in there. We'll find it. We'll research that later on.
We'll figure it out.
Unless those folks watching want to tell us who's wrong right now.
I have a feeling I know who's going to be wrong.
But the idea is you want to match the styles because there's certain styles that have like little to no mineral content and salt and metal content to their beer like that. And those in tradition are German beers, or actually Czechoslovakian beers are really well known for that. They created the style of Pils, and that's because they had so little mineral content that they need the minerals for the yeast to activate and begin eating the sugars. So if they're low in that, you have to concentrate those sugars or simplify those sugars in a more profane manner, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to use a step mash at the minimum, or you usually do a decoction mash, which is far more involved.
And I'm glad you bring that up because I'm going to skip the sentence about yeast because we're going to have an entire episode about yeast on this beer. The yeast that goes in this particular beer is very, very important. You can really make or break your alt beer with the yeast selection. But let's go to the very last sentence where it says a step mash or decoction mash program is traditional. So let's talk. I want to talk about step mash and decoction mash because this is going to be the first step of our beer. The first thing we're going to do after we mill our grains is we're going to mash the grains.
We are.
So let's talk about the method, the program that we're going to use to mash these grains. First, let's pretend that we're making just a traditional English beer.
Okay.
We're using all modified malts, so you don't have to worry about caramelizing your malts in the mash, which we have done, but you're not doing that. What are you going to do? Are you going? Or how many times are you going to? How many different temperatures are you going to use for that mash?
Possibly one. I mean, in a lot of cases, one temperature. It's called an infusion mash. You typically will only put it at one temperature, but you can do a step infusion mash. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but you will only do one. I mean, in most cases these days, the malts are perfect. They're not just like they were back in the day where some of them were malted, some of them weren't, depending on how well they rolled with the oast, and how well they turned it over. And looks like the Rangers are down another run, 4-3.
Oh, yeah. 3. The Chiefs guy already got us up to date on that. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. So what happened back in the day, it was very hard for them to control which grains were sprouted and which grains weren't before they killed them. So nowadays, it's like a science. I mean, they got it down. So they can get everything really well modified. What they say is it's 95% or better modified. So that every grain minus 5 out of 100 is perfect.
And that so that is assuming that we're making an English beer or a lot of other different beer styles, but we're making a German beer, and in particular, we're making a high-bodied German beer where we want to get a lot of head retention.
And a crystal clear
and a crystal clear beer. So it says that you want to use a step mash or a decoction mash. Let's talk about the steps. Now, for those of you that are watching that don't know about making beer, the very first step is you mash your grains. What that means is that you soak your grains at a given temperature or multiple temperatures to extract various enzymes, to extract various components out of the grains.
What happens is at certain temperatures, certain enzymes become active that are available already in the grains. So the grains need a certain temperature before those become active. And what happens traditionally in the ground when you plant that seed is it elevates the temperature. That's why a grain on top of the ground doesn't do much, but you put a grain under the ground and all of a sudden it's able to cook and it's able to sprout a plant from that. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to really kickstart the process at which the grains are releasing their sugars.
Absolutely, and we're going to be using European mainland malts, and typically what you're looking at are I believe summer grains, but what they're going to have in them is a very high protein content, and so the first thing we want to do is we want to convert, we want to extract some of the proteins out of there. We actually want proteins in this beer because proteins are going to give you texture, they're going to give you weight to the beer. Mm-hmm. It's going to make the beer a little thicker, it's going to make the beer a little heavier, and that's actually what we're going for. So we're going to try to enact proteolytic enzymes. And to get those, we're going to start with a really, really thick mash. Just as thick as we can get it.
Like porridge. You're
like
talking
porridge.
About thick, you mean a lot less water per the amount of grains. So, yeah, you're talking like oatmeal-y type thick, where it's really hard to stir the stuff.
Exactly. And for that, we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 118 to 123 degrees. I'm thinking probably the higher end of that, like 122, 123 degrees. Mm-hmm. And there's a wide range where the proteolytic enzymes are active. But we're probably going to aim for right in the middle, maybe the high end of the middle of that range.
And by going to the high end, what you do is you start to deactivate some of the enzymes that are available in that range, but you start to bring in the enzymes that are available in the next range. So depending on what you're looking for and how much action you want out of those, you want to be at the high end or the middle end or the low end of a style.
And that's exactly correct. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to enact the beta amylase enzymes. And just to break that down into what is a little bit more layman speak, we're going to use these enzymes to extract fermentable sugar. And this is where beer is made.
Yeah.
Is with your betas, because you're getting your fermentable sugar.
And betas think like if you had a link of chains, or chain link, whatever you want to call it. So you got 20 different links. What the beta does, it cuts that in half. So now you got two 10-link chains. So you've got smaller chains, and it breaks things in half. It chews them from the middle.
Exactly. And then our last step is going to enact the alpha amylase. And what those are doing is those are creating more unfermentable sugars like our proteins, that these are going to be unfermentable. And these are called dextrins. So we're going to be converting starch into dextrin, which is unfermentable. Now,
really, Kyle, you're not going to break out into a little unfermentable?
Unfermentable. That's what you are.
I like that.
I'm still waiting for
I would expect no less.
I'm still waiting for my my mash joke. I knew there was going to be a do 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 do. No, I was looking for that one. I was going to sing the mash theme song for you. You know,
my old man would love that. My old man is obsessed with MASH. he loves MASH the way I love Scrubs. I mean, he can turn on any episode and just start speaking along with.
Is
the
that
characters.
why you had to change your name legally from Corporal Klinger?
No, it was actually Hawkeye Pierce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right, continue on.
Unfermentable alpha. Okay. I was trying to work backwards to figure out where we left off. More unfermentable sugar. Why are these unfermentables important? They've got two uses. You talk about one of the uses, and I'll talk about the other.
Well, first off, the alpha not only creates unfermentable sugars, which once you get it up to that temperature, it's going to be able to break those chains in so many ways. Because you think about the chains that we were talking about. Now that you've broken it into from 20 to 10. It's going to chew on the ends. So you're going to have singles, and then you're going to have 8. So you got 1 and 1 and 8. And it's going to keep trying to do that, but it's going to eventually leave some where you got 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And if it got too many of those links, the yeast, when you introduce that, is not going to eat that. So the yeast not being able to eat something is going to leave more body and more character in the beer. And that's one of the things that this beer has. It has a high malt content, so you taste the flavor of the malt when you're drinking the beer.
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. That's a very important use of these unfermentable sugars. And the second thing that they do, and this is something I actually just learned today. You might have already known this, but your unfermentables, your dextrin and your protein, that they link together in your finished beer. That they form almost a spider web within the beer. And as carbonation, and remember, we're going to carbonate our beer. We're going to instill carbon dioxide in it. And what happens when you open a beer? That carbon dioxide, it escapes the beer. And that's why your beers bubble. So as carbon dioxide is escaping the beer,
that's
it's actually
why you burp.
That is why you burp. It's actually bringing the unfermentables, the dextrin and the protein with it, and leaving them on top of the beer, and that's where your head retention comes from. So very important stuff is accomplished.
That's why I burp.
That is another thing. You're actually going to find that this beer does not make you burp as much. Because a highly dextrous, a highly proteined beer is going to prevent carbon dioxide from making massive pockets like it does in lighter beers. Your proteins and your dextrins are going to keep the carbon dioxide in smaller bubbles, and so it's not going to affect you and make you burp as much.
That's good.
Something I just learned today.
These are medium-sized bubbles in this beer. So I had a medium burp. I can have a large burp, but we're going to need some larger bubbles, apparently.
Speaking of beers with larger bubbles, do you think we're done talking about the mash for one night?
Hey guys.
So basically what we've talked about is the methodology behind the mash, right? So we need to decide how we are actually going to do this in this beer.
Okay.
Hold on one second. We're going to do a quick segue. I just need to fix some audio click real quick. And then we'll edit this part out.
I'm going to get another beer. Johnny Damon struck out, by the way. For those of you watching at home.
John D. who?
Johnny Damon. The guy that used to have the beard.
Matt Damon.
Johnny Damon.
All right, Richard is doing something that is not happening very fast.
I'm good. I was getting tired.
Go team, go.
I was getting tired of talking.
Swear my buddy.
People think that just because you have a show, you should talk all the time.
It's not that kind of show.
Sometimes we just stare and look pretty.
That's my department, really.
I think occasionally during our show, just to get people where they feel like we're having a typical show, we should just stop moving and talking in unison, where they think their internet has messed up and we're stopped.
I like that idea.
And then they'll go, oh, something's happening, and they'll refresh the screen about 52 times.
What would be funnier is if only one of us does it. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
The left hand of the screen.
Half the screen is working and half isn't.
You can just hold up a big poster with like a some kind of like Mexican phone card commercial.
Yeah.
If half the screen was working and half the screen wasn't, we would call that half-ass sportscast.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, can you boost the audio coming out of your mixer, Kyle?
Oh yeah, we can do that.
Just crank up the volume.
Well, Rich, while he's messing with the audio, let me just encourage some of our viewers. I know the cheese guy. I'm looking at you for this. We need some people to confess their beer sins.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
So that we can do the beer confession segment. We haven't done that in a while.
I like that.
And the cheese guy.
Is that better, Rich?
Apparently, yeah. We're messing with the viewers at home. They think they're losing their hearing.
Oh, okay.
That's weird.
All right, I think we're back.
All right, so we're good to go.
No. This is technical difficulties. This is tweaking. This isn't a problem. This is optional, guys. Calm down in the chat room.
Okay. So, Rich, we were waiting on you. Oh no, we were waiting. The audio you were going to mess with was the sound. I thought you had a special sound clip you were going to play for us. Can you play a sound clip? So I'm not disappointed. Suck it.
You son of a bitch. All right. Keep going.
All right. So anyway, let's. You want to talk about grains tonight, or do you want to?
No. We got to finish the mash. We'll finish the mash and the water.
All right,
the water we've already decided is close enough to what the style desires. All right. So this playing.
Apparently, we need thrills. Is it thrills or frills while we dine?
I think we need frilly thrills.
Frilly thrills. All right. I think we definitely need to do a step mash.
Okay, step mash.
I think we definitely need to include wheat. And we talked about wheat earlier as a way to boost your protein content and as a way to increase head retention.
Sure.
And
but that's for a whole nother episode, man.
Handful. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead.
We're talking about the mash content.
Yeah, we're talking about the mash right now. I'm sorry.
This is a triage episode.
Triage.
For all of those mash viewers out there.
Yes.
We are not actually going to perform good surgery. We are just going to patch you up and send you back into battle. So what we're doing tonight is we're discussing our mash. We got the water. Two things we're going to talk about tonight. The water content, boom, house water. We're good.
Okay.
And the mash, you're talking step mash. Three step.
So we're going to do 3 steps. We're going to start. Are we going to start with? We didn't talk about acid rest tonight. Because it's not very common, and I don't think we're really going to need it unless you have really highly alkaline water.
And it's something that, it's more important in certain areas and in certain processes, and depending on certain grains. You don't have any of those things that would require that.
Okay, these enzymes, I'm going to give a really quick breakdown of acid rest. These enzymes that we've been discussing work better in a slightly acidic environment. We're talking a pH of 5 to 5.7. And so when you're working with highly alkaline water or highly alkaline grains, as some tend to be, you will need to do what's called an acid rest that will lower the pH. But we're not going to deal with that. We're going to dive straight into protein rest. And we're going to get those proteolytic enzymes rolling. And then, how long are we going to sit at that? I'm thinking 30-minute protein rest.
You think you want to go big on the protein rest?
Yes.
Really big? That's pretty big.
You're disagreeing.
Well, I'm all right with it. I'd say when you're doing a step mash, that's a 3-step mash. 30 minutes is about as long as you would go on any one step.
Okay.
So
maybe dial it back a little. Maybe do 20.
Because you're talking a typical mash will be around 60 minutes. So if we're going to mash beyond 60 minutes, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to drop the body of the beer. So the longer we mash, the less overall body will be left in that beer.
So what do you think? 20 on each? 20 on protein, 20 on beta, 20 on alpha?
That's a pretty basic deal, and I think we'd be totally fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 20, 20, and 20.
We might do some research and tweak this as we go.
We may go 25 here.
Yeah, we like to tell you all the time, and we really do mean it, that we don't know everything. We know where to look for everything, and we know who to talk to about everything, but we don't know everything. So we're just kind of shooting from the hip on this. We're going to talk to some people that really know. Actually, let's grab some people from the club that really know their German beers, see if they'll come on and join us. So we're going to do 20 minutes each on each of our rests, and then we're gonna kill it with boiling water, and then we're gonna pour it out, and we're gonna start our boiler. Yep. And that's where we come in next week. Or, well, I guess we'll talk about our grains next time.
We'll talk about what we're going to kill and what it's made of. So.
What do you want to do next week?
We're definitely going to talk about
our grains. All right.
We're going to recap about the Oklahoma-Texas football game.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is not a sports show, but some things have to be discussed, and Oklahoma-Texas is one of them. So
you all knew that when you signed up. That's what you get.
We will also talk about our research on the beer feast.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some very important show research this weekend, everyone. We're going to be attending a local beer festival called Beer Feast, and I think that we should bring the flip video camera.
I think we should, just because the video camera itself has its own name, and that's important to bring it with you.
Yeah, its name is Flippy McFlippington,
right?
And he's our intern. So Flippy McFlippington is going to come to the show, come to the Beer Feast with us.
So when you actually go to Beer Feast, you're like, "Hey, who's at Beer Feast?" And it's like, "Oh, it's Bono and Kyle and the Cheese Guy and Flippy McFlipperton."
Well, Flippy is not getting a ticket; he's going to sneak in.
We're going to sneak him in your pocket.
That's how I got in last year.
I was about to say, much like Ryan Faulkner normally tries to get in.
This is getting over the top. Let's kill it. Did you have anything? What else?
So we're putting in boiling water. We're going
to put in the boiling water, and we're going to kill this episode.
All right.
Is there anything else you wanted to run up? But before we,
the score. I like to run up the score.
Yeah, we're going to run up the score, and while we're doing that, we need you to keep in mind, just in case you were going to forget, that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Agitation, frustration,
but they're really important concepts. So I feel like it was really important for us to get those out there.